Through the book Anandmath or the Sacred Brotherhood by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. It is translated with an introduction and critical apparatus by Julius J.Lipner. Anandmath is considered a seminal work in Indian literature. What is seminal? It could be related to a work or art or movement that strongly influences later developments. And in this case, yes, it did. It inspired generations of Indians to fight for their freedom and national identity. The novel's theme of patriotism, sacrifice, and nationalism continue to resonate even today. A Bengali novel written by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, published in 1882. The novel is set in the late 18th century, during which two main events took place. One was the Great Bengal Famine of 1770, and second was the Sannyasi rebellion against British colonial rule. The story revolves around a group of sannyasis, or monks, who take up arms against the British East Company to protect their motherland and fellow Indians. The novel explores themes of patriotism, sacrifice, and the struggle for independence. The key elements are Vande Mataram, that introduces the iconic song Vande Mataram, which becomes a rallying cry for Indian nationalism. Bharat Mata, the concept of Mother India, a central theme symbolizing the motherland and her people. Sannyasi rebellion. The novel is based on the historical Sannyasi rebellion, showcasing the resistance against British rule and the quest for freedom. And it goes on to talk about sacrifice and brotherhood. Novel emphasizes the themes of sacrifice, brotherhood, and continuity of resilience during times of hardship and conflict. And we also have the socio-political context. The novel critiques the British colonial rule and its impact on Indian society, while also exploring the complexities of Hindu-Muslim relations during that period. Talking about the main characters, for the first one is Mahendra, the protagonist, a wealthy zamindar or the landlord who joins the Sannyasi rebellion. Kalyani, his wife, who represents strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Satyananda, founder and leader of Anandmath, a rebel group fighting against British colonial rule. Jibananda, that is Jiban, a brave warrior and Satyananda's most accomplished disciple. He is married to Shanti. Shanti, or Nabeen, Jiban's wife, who disguises herself as a man and joins the Sannyasi rebellion alongside her husband. Sukumari, Mahendra and Kalyani's daughter, that is the rich landlord's and Kalyani's daughter. We have Nimbi, Jiban's married sister who takes care of Shanti. Then we have Captain Thomas and Major Edward, British characters who represent the colonial oppressors. And we have Bhavananda, a courageous commander of Anandmath who dies in the battle against the British. And there are some other minor characters. Read the book and see for yourself. The novel appeared serially in the journal Banga Darshan, that is Anandmath serial version. And of course, as I pointed out, that it was first published in 1882. That was the first edition. In the notice of the third edition, Bankim says, the battles described in the novel took place in the northern Bengal and not in Birbhum region. Bankim is aware that the locus of the novel permits imaginative license. In an article, Anandmath, Sthan, Kal, Patra, Krishna Chandra Bhagat. Now, Sthan means place, Kal means time, and Patra means characters. Then Kishan Chand Bhagat writes, some of the forest scenes were based on Bankim's experience of the forest in Lal Gola area. He spent ample time to explore and soak in the atmosphere. The complex of temples and shrines in the region and the tunnels linking some of these, the sacred sites, acted as a model for the main temples and shrines of the story. Bankim Chandra was amazed to see temples of Jagadhatri, Mahakali, and Durga in this dense forest. So there's nothing imaginary about the comparison he made between past, present, and future of the goddess as a mother of Bengal in Anandmath. And the three images he saw, goddess, he saw in the forest of Lal Gola. These three temples exist there even today, it seems. The image of goddess Kali in the novel is drawn from the figure of the Mahakali in the Lal Gola temple dedicated to her. Further, Bankim directly derived inspiration from the song Vande Mataram from rituals in this temple, which may well have included a chant he duplicated in the first portion of his own hymn in Anandmath. The Vishnu image and the temple described in the novel were quite possibly drawn from the counterparts found in Lal Gola. The family deity or the Kul Devata of the ruling house in Lal Gola was Vishnu in the form described in the Vishnu temple in the novel. The Mutt or monastery of Anandmath was based on an ancient Buddhist cloister, that is Bodh Bihar, situated in the woodland in the vicinity of Rajabari. The novel explicitly states that the monastery in which the leading Santans lived in the forest was once a Buddhist cloister. And I read from the book. During the famine of 1770, the controlling zamindari, the zamindari means jamidari, that means the landlords of the region, had seen to the needs of thousands of tantrics and sannyasis and others who had sought its help. When Governor General Warren Hastings broke up this jamidari on the pretext of its failure to pay the full revenue, the beneficiaries, including tantrics and renouncers of the jamindari's aid in the past, attacked the British encamped nearby. Thus began history's famous sannyasi rebellion in the area. The religious practitioners of a monastery not far away joined the rebellion, first placing the relics and images of their monastery in the safekeeping of the patrons of the Raghunath temple. So, Bhagat claims that Bankim's conception of the sannyasi rebellion was colored by this local manifestation of it. So I'm going to read an episode in the story in which one of the heroines, Kalyani, a young mother with her infant child, has been seized by starving bandits, rendered desperate by the famine of 1770. Night is about to fall. In Part 1, Chapter 2, Bankim writes, Then the black gaunt men seized and lifted Kalyani and the girl, carried them out of the building, and crossing a field entered a jungle beyond. In Hindu tradition, the word jungle connotes disorder, fear, insecurity. The assemblage of trees and so on that constitutes a jungle is threatening, the abode of untamed forces. Only wild beasts are at home in the jungle. Yet within a few lines in chapter 1, Bankim continues, the forest in which the bandits put Kalyani down was very beautiful. There was no light, no eye to behold the charm. The beauty of that forest remained hidden like the beauty within a poor man's heart. Food might be scarce in the region, but there were flowers in that forest, and the flowers had a fragrance that seemed to make even that darkness glow. Like a new movement on a sonata, the mood has changed. The word used for forest throughout this passage is vana, ban, in Bengali form, a place that is less threatening than a jungle. It is as if Bankim is offering a respite to the terrified, vulnerable captive and her infant daughter. And indeed, after a brief while at least, while the bandits are otherwise occupied, Kalyani is able to rest and take stock of her situation. But before the bandits can carry out a hasty devised plan to eat the child in their desperate craving for food, unbeckoned to them, Kalyani has escaped with her daughter. Again, the mood changes. The chapter ends with the words, taking the child in her arms, she had given her breast and fled into the forest. Seeing that their prey had escaped, the ghoulish band ran in every direction, crying, kill, kill. In certain circumstances, human beings become nothing but ravening beasts. Chapter 4 begins as follows. The forest was pitch dark, and Kalyani was at a loss to find a way. Not only was there no path among the dense thickets of trees, creepers, and thorns, but it was also intensely dark. Kalyani began to force her way through the forest. The higher the moon rose and the brighter it became, the more the darkness began to hide, and the more Kalyani and her child sought cover in turn. The baying robbers began to close in as the terrified child cried all the louder. The forest has changed form again, once more becoming an abode of beasts, including the human variety, and once again placing Kalyani in a peril. From a place that provides respite, fragrant with flowers, it is transmuted into a hostile, obstructive environment to the fugitives. It is like a living thing with different moods and faces, now protective, now threatening. There is more than a streak of what we might call romantic tendencies in Bankim. In his writings, nature is often personified, sometimes in her own right, sometimes as a foil of human agency, especially women. There is a fair amount of this in Anandmath. So if you go through that, you'll find that the background in Anandmath is formed by an account of those days of famine and pestilence 100 years before the time of Bankim Chandra. Only a novelist of his distinction could make the picture actual and real in just 3 small chapters. The language responds to the cold, unemotional mood of the narrator. Each word seems to be instinct with life and fire. Even a few simple and condensed paragraphs have become more suggestive than pages of historical documents. For example, and I read, it was a summer day of the Bengal year 1176. The glare of the heat of the sun lay very heavy on the village of Padachinha. The village was crowded with houses, yet there was not a man to be seen. Line after line of shops in the bazaar, rows of booths in the market, hundreds of earthen houses interspersed with stone mansions, high and low in every quarter. But today all was silent. In the bazaar the shops were closed, and where the shopkeeper has fled no man can tell. It was a market day today, but in the mart there is no buying and selling. It is the beggar's day, but the beggars are not out. The weaver has shut up his loom and lies weeping in his house. The trader has forgotten his traffic and weeps with his infant in his lap. The givers have left giving, and the teachers closed their schools. The very infant, it would seem, has no longer heart to cry aloud. No wayfarers are to be seen in the highways, no bathers in the lake, no human forms at door and threshold, no birds in the trees, no cattle in the pastures, only in the burning ground, dog and jackal crowd. So it appears Bankim is making use of historical material in such a way as to transfigure with his genius, like an epic poet, the general circumstance of an age. So we have in chapter 10, 11, part 1, they exhibit the core of idealism of the inspired freedom fighters. The Vande Mataram hymn occurs in chapter 10, and the image of goddess Kali and a white marble statue of Mother, that shall be, in chapter 11. So both the hymn and the images are in harmony with the lofty subject. Indeed, they seem to be completely assimilated with it. The 34-line hymn seems to make the structure itself vibrant and dramatic emotion. They make the structure itself almost like vibrant with dramatic emotion. The stature of Anandmath is greatly increased by the extraordinarily stirring character of its time. The Malar Kawali Tal, the ingenious blending in it of Bengali passages with Sanskrit. In process of time, people came to regard the book as a sacrament and the song as an impassioned expression of patriotic sentiments. Martyrs from generation to generation faced the gallows with the radiance of Vande Mataram reflected on their faces. It is the appropriateness of its context and the splendor of its content that conferred upon it international celebrity. So as you read, you come to know that Anandmath is one of the noblest of the works of Bankim Chandra. The nature of its design is indicated by the brief, bold, and original preface, which demands the main intense devotion to his cause. The foreword to the first edition states further the line of development. And I read, sometimes a Bengali wife is her husband's best help, but sometimes not. Then there's also a comment, social revolution is often suicidal, and the rebels defeat themselves. The English have redeemed Bengal from anarchy. The book expounds these truths. These lines constitute, in the language of dramatic criticism, the motive action of the novel. The action has been enclosed with the enveloping action of Sannyasi rebellion of 1772. Alteration of the place and the people are recorded in history, has been made to suit one of the objectives of the author, the glorification of heroic Bengal. So I'm going to read from a random conversation with a bandit. So, and rather than be obliged to abandon bandit, I think it's best if I remain unobliged, says Mahendra. So the bandit says, it's up to you whether you want our help or not, said Baba Nanda. But if you do, then follow me. I'll take you to your wife and child. Mahendra turned and stopped short. What's that? He cried. Without replying, Baba Nanda walked away. Mahendra had no choice but to follow. What kinds of bandits are these? He wondered. So that's, look at that. Chapter 10, I'm just going to read. The two walked silently across the plain in the moonlight. Mahendra was silent, anguished, unbending, somewhat intrigued. Suddenly, Baba Nanda seemed to become a different person. No longer was he the grave, calm renouncer, the skilled, valiant figure of the battlefield, the man who had cut off the head of a commanding officer, no longer the man who had just rebuked Mahendra so haughtily. It was as if seeing the radiance of plain and forest, mountain and river of a peaceful moonlit world had invigorated his mind in a special way, like the ocean gladdened by the rising moon. He was now light-hearted, talkative, friendly, keen to make a conversation. He tried often to get Mahendra to talk, but Mahendra remained silent. Then, with no other recourse, Baba Nanda began to sing softly to himself. I revere the mother, rich in waters, rich in fruit, cooled by the southern airs, verdant with the harvest fair. Mahendra was a little astonished when he heard the song and was at a loss to understand who was this mother, rich in waters, rich in fruit, cooled by the southern airs, verdant with a harvest fair. Who is this mother? He asked Baba Nanda. Without answering, Baba Nanda began to sing, the mother with nights that thrill in the light of the moon, radiant with foliage and flowers in bloom, smiling sweetly, speaking gently, giving joy and gifts in plenty. And long since this, let me say that this prayer to the motherland in 1950 became the national song of India. It goes like, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Shitalam, Shasya Shamalam, Mataram, Vande Mataram. So Sujala means rich in waters, Sufala means rich in fruit, and cooled by the southern airs. That means where the sandalwood trees are on those mountains, the breeze from there fills the entire atmosphere with perfume and cools, etc. You can just read for yourself and you know that. Okay, now Mahendra cried, but that's our land, not our mother. What are you talking about, motherland? That's our land. Baba Nanda replied, we recognize no other mother. One's mother and birthland are greater than heaven itself. But we say that our birthland is our mother. We've no mothers, fathers, brothers, friends, no wives, children, houses or homes. All we have is she who is rich in waters, rich in fruit, cooled by the southern airs, verdant with a harvest fair. Then sing on, said Mahendra, understanding at last, And Bhabananda sang once more. I revere the mother, rich in waters, rich in fruit, cool by the southern airs, verdant with the harvest fair. The mother with nights that thrill in the light of the moon, radiant with foliage and flowers in bloom, smiling sweetly, speaking gently, giving joy and gifts in plenty. Powerless? How so, mother? With the strength of voices fell, 70 million in their swell, and with sharpened swords by twice as many hands upheld. So, well, this is a bandit, and this is how he says we have no mothers, fathers, brothers, friends, wives, houses. All we have is our motherland, because who's rich in waters, rich in fruit, cool by the southern airs, verdant and harvest free. And he continues to sing, to the mother I bow low, to her who wields so great a force, to her who saves and drives away the hostile hordes. You are wisdom, you are law, you are heart, you are core. In our bodies the living force is thine, mother, you are our strength of arm, and in our hearts the loving balm, yours the form we shape in every shrine. For you are Durga, bearer of the tenfold power, the wealth's goddess, dallying on the lotus flower. You are speech, to you I bow, to us wisdom you endow. How beautiful, even in translation. So you can imagine the original. So I continue to read from page 146 of this book. I bow to the goddess fair, rich in waters, rich in fruit, to the mother, spotless and beyond compare. I revere the mother, darkly green and also true, richly dressed of joyous face, this ever plenteous land of grace. Mahendra saw that the bandit wept as he sang. Who are the people? He asked, bewildered. Bhabananda replied, we are the children. What does that mean? Whose children? Said Mahendra. The mother's children. Mahendra said, fine, do children honor their mothers by robbing and plundering? What kind of mother love is this? Bhabananda replied, we don't rob and plunder, but you've just plundered those carts. Was that robbery and plunder? Whose money did we plunder? The king's, of course. The king, said Bhabananda. Does he have a right to the money he takes? It's the king's share. A king who doesn't look after his kingdom is no king, said Bhabananda. I can see sepoys blowing you all to bits some day at the cannon's mouth. Don't worry. Don't worry. I've seen plenty of those scoundrels about. I saw some today too. You didn't see well enough. One day you'll really see, said Mahendra. Perhaps, said Bhabananda. You can only die once. Yes, but why court death? So, the conversation goes on, etc. It is interesting. You must go through even in translation, the book is very interesting. Essaying the culture, the history of Bharat, India. So Bankim was born in June 1838 in a respected Brahmin family, and he was really well versed in English. It's written in several respects he had been westernized through a knowledge of English and conformity to British ways. Bankim was to display and increase this influence by attending English teaching schools. He was good in Bengali, he was good in Sanskrit. So Bankim had a robust knowledge of Sanskrit learning, notwithstanding his modest disclaimer in later years that he was an indifferent Sanskrit scholar. He regularly reviewed Sanskritic publications in Bangadarshan and referred to Sanskrit texts, expression and passages in his writing, including Anandmath, showing a wide knowledge of the tradition. Indeed, the slogan Vande Mataram is a Sanskrit expression, and the song from which it derives has strong Sanskrit content. So though he liked the Western progress, etc., but it was clear in his mind that with Western progress and he felt that it wasn't appropriate for Indian identity, especially in the context of an emerging nation state, without being rooted in ancestral hegemonic values, the Sanskritic tradition. So, that you'll find when you read the book, or even if you read about him. So I continue to read from the book, Introduction, page 95. He says, he wrote, Bankim writes, that modern science has shown that the Hindus always knew that the phenomena of nature are simply the manifestation of force. They worship, therefore, nature as force, Shakti. Literally and ordinarily means force or energy. As destructive energy, force is Kali, hideous and terrible, because destruction is hideous and terrible. A constructive energy force is the bright and resplendent Durga. The universal soul is also worshipped, but in three distinct aspects. I translate them as love, power, and justice. Love creates, power preserves, justice dooms. Once again, love creates, power preserves, justice dooms. This is the Hindu idea of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Mahesh. I now pass on to the worship. Much of the Hindu ritual is mere mummery. Idol worship is permitted, is even belauded in the Hindu scriptures, but it is not enjoined as compulsory. The orthodox Brahmin is bound to worship Vishnu and Shiva every day, but he is not bound to worship their images. He may worship their images if he chooses, but if he does not so choose, the worship of the invisible is accepted as sufficient. So talking about the idols, he says, the image is simply the visible and accessible medium through which I choose to send my homage to the throne of the invisible and inaccessible. The image is holy, not because the worshipper believes it is to be his God. He believes in no such thing, but because he has made a contract, which is his own heart, for the sake of culture and discipline, to treat it as God's image. So he just goes on to say, and I must ask the student of Hinduism, when he comes to study Hindu idolatry, to forget the nonsense about dolls given to children, etc. So, just go through the introduction, the book. You're really going to get a peep into the Indian culture. So I'm reading the prologue from page 129. A vast forest, most of the trees in it are sal, a kind of tree, but there are also many other kinds of trees. The trees with foliage intertwined stretch out in endless ranks, without break or gaps, without even openings for light to penetrate. A boundless ocean of leaves, wave upon wave, ruffled by the wind, rolls on for mile after mile. Below, profound darkness prevails. Even at high noon, the light is dim, dreadful. Humans never venture into the forest, and except for the ceaseless murmur of the leaves and the cries of its wild beasts and birds. No other sound is heard in it. Not only is this a vast, profoundly dark forest, but it is also late at night, and it is an extremely dark night, dark even outside the forest. Nothing is visible, and the mass of gloom within is like the darkness in the very bowels of the earth. The birds and animals are completely silent. How many countless millions of animals, birds, worms, and insects live in that forest? Yet not one makes the slightest sound. Indeed, the darkness of which we speak could be imagined, but that brooding silence of an otherwise clamorous world is beyond conceiving. In that boundless forest, then, in that impenetrably dark night, in the inconceivable silence, a voice was heard. Will my heart's desire never be fulfilled, etc. So, from the inner flap, from the first, from the cover, the inner flap, I read. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's novel Anandmath was of crucial significance in shaping a new Hindu identity as well as the ideology of early Hindu nationalism. It gripped the imagination not only of Bengalis agitating for freedom from British colonialist rule, but also of leading nationalist-minded Indians. Its hymn Vande Mataram eventually became India's national song. In this stirring tale set in Bengal during the famine of 1770, a group of Hindu warrior monks, devotees of an avenging mother goddess, emerged from their monastery in the depths of a huge forest to try to overthrow the oppressors as they see them of their mother homeland. Woven into the narrative as a variety of themes, including the political and social role of Muslims in the new India, the rise of modernity in the subcontinent, with special reference to the consequences of British rule, the place of women in Hindu society, the relationship between violence and political agitation, and the kind of historiography that governs the birth of a new nation. This volume makes this important work newly available in a complete and readable English version, skillfully translated by Julius J.Lipner. I'm sure what you will enjoy is that he supplies an extensive introduction contextualizing the novel and its cultural and political, and I'll read from the last, continued on the back flap. So the books are Hindus, their religious beliefs and practices, and Brahmabandha Upadhyay, the life and the thought of a revolutionary. So all of this is the ISBN for you. So in praise of the book, it's written, we have waited 100 years for this book. The last two faithful but incomplete translations of Bankim Chandra's classic novel were in the early 1900s and are long out of print. Lipner's translation supersedes all previous versions. His rendering of Anandmath, complete with introduction and splendid critical apparatus, will delight scholars of Indian literature, religion and history, Bengali culture and Hindu goddess worship at last. This is Rachel Fell McDermott, Chair of the Asian and Middle Eastern Cultures Department, Barnard College. So that's Anandmath, translated by Julius J.Lipner. Wonderful book to go through. Must read.